We have an action-packed lineup for you this afternoon. I think it's going to be entertaining. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be a kid again. All right, first off, let's get started with bill introductions. This is the last day for committee requests for bill drafts. Are there any bill introductions? Eric Turek of the Insurance Department never fails to impress.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Eric Turek from the Kansas Department of Insurance. Pleased to introduce RS 0616. This concerns statutory references to the department and then also concerns the Securities Commissioner.
Aha, so am I correct in assuming that that bill would make your introduction actually valid when you said Department of Insurance?
You know, he gets confused enough, I know.
All right, are there objections to the filing of this oh-so-timely bill? Seeing none, all right, it will be introduced. Are there any other bill introductions? All right, I understand Representative Tarwater has one, so we'll circle back to this at the end of the meeting. Now, let's get started. Last week, we heard 4 bills. HB 2044, 45, 46, and 47. The fact that they were all in numerical order is a complete and utter accident, and I promise never to do that again. All right, but to get us up to speed and refresh our memory, Eileen, could you describe for us HB 2044, please?
It's on like a half sheet of paper, and it's probably 4.5 by...
That's exactly the one I was referring to.
I got you.
I
Okay.
vote aye.
House Bill 2044 is the bill that would require third-party administrators maintain separate fiduciary accounts for individual payers and not commingle funds with those, and also would require that third-party administrators disclose to the Commissioner of Insurance when they file for a bankruptcy petition or one is filed on their behalf.
All right, committee, you'll recall that this one correctly deals with third-party administrators, and it's really just kind of defining some terms. There was nothing really monumental that took place there. Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we pass out House Bill 2044 favorably for passage and put it on the consent calendar.
You read my mind. Very good. All right, you've heard the motion to place 2044 favorably on the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Second by Representative Chauncey. All right, is there discussion on this power-packed, exciting bill? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Very good. 2044 has been passed out successfully to the consent agenda. All right. Eileen, can you refresh our memories on HB 2045?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2045 would reduce the number of board members on certain boards that are subject to the Commissioner's appointment and would amend the frequency of the meetings of the Committee on Surety Bonds and Insurance from monthly to on the call of the Chair.
All right, committee, as you'll recall, this one was solving the majority problem was that they couldn't get people to attend the meetings, so they're reducing the number of people that need to attend the meetings. Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we also saw this last year, and I think it got lost in the conference committee report. And I don't think it is really something that would be controversial. So with that, I would move that we pass out House Bill 2045 favorably for a passage and place it on the consent calendar.
All right, you've heard the motion. Do I have a second? Second by Representative Bergkamp, by Vice Chair Bergkamp. All right, discussion on the motion. Seeing none. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Very good. 2045 is moved to the consent agenda. Eileen, let's talk about 2046.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2046 regards travel insurance policy and would allow insurers to file certain travel insurance policies under the accident and health line of insurance if they meet certain requirements relating to providing coverage for sickness, accident, disability, or death.
Excellent. Committee, you'll recall this one expanded travel insurance from just property and casualty to also include health and life. I think that's kind of an appropriate switch, but this bill actually does stuff, so it's kind of interesting on that regard. All right, I would entertain a motion regarding, Representative Neighbor regarding House Bill 2046.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we, for the reasons of discussion, pass out House Bill 2046 favorably for passage.
Right, do I have a second? Representative Chauncey seconds the motion. Discussion on 2046. Representative Neighbor, I had a feeling something was coming.
Actually, I think this is important because it's also a part of NIAC, which we belong to, and it brings us in compliance with the Travel Insurance Model Act. So with that, I would make the recommendation that we pass out House Bill 2046 favorably for passage.
Very good. Second by Representative Haskins. All right, any further discussion? I would happen, by the way, to agree with my ranking on this. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Very good. HB 2046 is passed out favorably. All right, HB 2047, as I recall, this was an entertaining time we had here in committee. Eileen, can you refresh our memory in case we forgot or willingly forgot over the weekend?
Wished we forgot.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2047 is the bill that would provide for the establishment of an online verification system for the verification of evidence of motor vehicle insurance.
All right, committee, recall there was some rather lively discussion surrounding 2047. I'm not sure it was necessarily negative, but we definitely plumbed the depths of the bill in order to suss out every little detail we possibly could. Representative Neighbor.
Because we had such a fun conversation, I would move that we pass out House Bill 2047 favorable for the purpose of discussion.
All right, is there a second? Second by Representative Haskins? Hawkins? All right. Discussion on HB 2047. Take it away. Seeing none, do you want the amendments? Or do you want to pass it?
I am, 1 minute. Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment.
All right, very good. If you could describe the amendment for me. Oh, let's just pass it out. By golly, and we'll all read.
And
I have
then I'll let our
faith in our committee.
wonderful assistant here tell you what it does or doesn't do.
Unfounded, perhaps. I just wanted to have those handy. I wasn't necessarily going to run either one of them, but that one does make it. I like that one.
Well, this one isn't happening.
I don't like that one.
Then it's not happening. We see eye to eye. We see eye to eye.
There we go.
Only one.
All right. Eileen, you want to take it away and explain this amendment to HB 2047 that will in itself make this
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This practically perfect amendment would insert language as a new section 10 and shift the current language for section 10 down to a section 11. But section 10 would then read, establishing compliance with the provisions of KSA 40-3104 and amendments thereto. And 40-3104 is the statute that requires motor vehicle insurance. Through the insurance verification system shall not be the primary cause for law enforcement to stop a vehicle.
Yes, Representative Neighbor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there seemed to be some concern that there might be, I'm not going to say profiling, but stopping of vehicles for no reason. And so for that, I bring this amendment.
For discussion, Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might have got a little triggered in the hearing on this. I have a lot of concerns about proliferation of license plate readers and the such, and I slept on it and had some more discussions with the parties involved, and I think that this amendment more than addresses my concerns. At the end of the day, they could just take the list of registrations and the list that they get of uninsured motorists and match them, without readers or whatever, law enforcement involved. And so this addresses all my concerns, and I appreciate everybody working to make this a better bill.
Excellent. For the record, this was brought up just because of some of those concerns. As for the chair himself getting uninsured motorists off the road, I've been hit by one before, and by golly, I have an entirely different idea on the notion. I would be entirely fine with scanning parking lots and booting any cars that have no insurance, but that's just me, and I will certainly be also supporting this amendment as well. Further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Representative Neighbor.
I just want to clarify that one of the reasons this was brought was because of Representative Proctor. Having served on elections with him, I know how detailed he is and very concerned on this subject. So thank you.
All right, further discussion on the amendment? Representative Neighbor, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I close and I move my amendment.
Okay, you've heard the amendment. Do we have a second by Representative Silas Miller? All right. Any further discussion? I can remember his first name even. No pressure, man. All right, all those in favor of the Neighbor amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, very good. The amendment is attached to the bill. Yes, Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that action being taken, I would move that we pass out House Bill number 2047 favorably as amended.
All right, do I have a second? Representative Miller once again jumps to the second. Discussion on the newly amended HB 2047. It's easy. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, HB 2047 is adopted. Nice work, committee. We just cleaned up all the stuff that we worked on last week. So, in celebration, let's have a hearing on HB 2087. I'll open the hearing on HB 2087, and come on, Eileen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. House Bill 2087 authorizes certain non-admitted insurers to transact certain business in Kansas and would require the Commissioner of Insurance to maintain a list of eligible non-admitted insurers. House Bill 2087 would amend current law to allow certain non-admitted insurers to provide motor vehicle liability insurance to motor vehicle dealers. Secondly, the bill replaces the phrase "insurers not authorized to do business in Kansas" with "eligible non-admitted insurer," and would also require the commissioner to maintain a list of such eligible non-admitted insurers for review. The bill also makes changes to the capital requirements for such insurers to actually appear on the commissioner's list, and would remove the $200 filing fee required of such insurers when they submit their annual statement for review in order to be included on the list. Finally, the bill states that a non-admitted insurer, one that's not included on the list, would be able to do business in the state if that non-admitted insurer meets the eligibility requirements of 15 U.S.C. Section 8204, which is the federal statutes or federal act on excess line insurers. Section 1 amends KSA 8-20 2405 pertaining to liability insurance required of motor vehicle dealers. Under current law, in order to be licensed in Kansas, a dealer must carry motor vehicle liability insurance for test drivers. If such insurance lapses or is canceled, then the dealer's license is also canceled. This section amendment would allow an eligible non-admitted insurer to also issue such insurance coverage. Section 2 amends KSA 40-246B pertaining to excess lines coverage insurance. Primarily here, this is a name change from insurers not authorized to do business in the state to eligible non-admitted insurers. There's not a lot of legal significance to that section. Section 3 amends KSA 40-246E pertaining to the Commissioner's list of eligible non-admitted insurers. The bill updates the capital requirements for an insurer to appear on the list, increasing it from $4.5 million to $15 million. And again, this section would also eliminate the $200 filing fee for an eligible non-admitted insurer to file its annual report in order to appear on the list. And I can stand for questions.
Right. That was awfully succinct. Any questions for the reviser regarding the meaning behind HB 2087 or the drafting thereof? Everyone understood that? That's perfect. That's wonderful. Eileen, you did a spectacular job, as usual. All right. We have two proponents listed. I have first, the only one in person is John Meats. Welcome to committee, John.
Vice Chair Neighbor and, Vice Chair Burkamp and Ranking Member Neighbor. So I don't want to read my whole testimony here. I'm going to try to keep this as succinct as possible, but I want to kind of lay the land here, tell you what proponents you have at the top of the testimony, and then talk a little bit about surplus lines or non-admitted insurance, give you a little crash course on that, and then go into a little bit about what the bill does. So first of all, I represent the Wholesale Specialty Insurance Association. We are a national association. We just happen to be located in Kansas City, Missouri. We are also partnering on this legislation with the American Property and Casualty Insurance Association and the Kansas Association of Insurance Agents. So there's a lot of overlap in all three of those associations. I think we have mutual members between all three of us. But essentially what you have is APCIA on one end, that's the insurance carriers. And they represent all P&C insurance carriers, but that also includes surplus lines and non-admitted carriers. You have WSIA, which is us. We're in the middle of that. We are the surplus lines broker. And then you have the Kansas Association of Insurance Agents. So this is the retail agent who speaks with the actual consumer. The consumer comes to the retail agent, wants to place business. If the retail agent is unable to place business in the standard market, then they come to a surplus lines broker, which is who we represent, and that surplus lines broker then legally may place that insurance with a non-admitted insurer. Okay. So what you can see here is we represent the entire string of the wholesale insurance transaction. So there's a lot of vague terminology associated with all of this, and I apologize if I use some of these terms in particular, but essentially surplus lines insurance and non-admitted insurance are synonymous for the purposes of what we're talking about today. So what is surplus lines insurance? It's actually easier to talk about what it's not. So we're not talking about health insurance or life insurance. This is only property and casualty insurance. It is primarily commercial. Only 5% by our estimates covers what we would call residential risks. Primary auto, for your compulsory auto insurance for any of your constituents, that is not permitted to be written in our market. So take that off the table. Only about 7% of the total Kansas property and casualty insurance market is surplus lines insurance. So we're a subset of a subset of a subset. And the most important thing you need to know here is surplus lines insurance may not be written unless it has already been rejected by the admitted market. So when you go to your insurance agent and need to place a business insurance policy, that retail agent must first seek insurance among the admitted or standard insurers, and only after that risk has been rejected by them may they go to a surplus lines broker and place that business in the surplus lines market. So that's why we call it the safety valve of the insurance industry. And for that reason, it's regulated a little differently than your standard admitted companies. Everybody always wants examples, and there are some sexy examples in the surplus lines industry, but I am not usually privy to those. I'm not a practitioner myself, so I'm going to give you a couple completely theoretical examples. Say there is a small town in eastern Kansas where there is a large electrical vehicle battery facility. That facility would need general liability, it would need insurance on the property, and it would need products liability insurance on the batteries it's manufacturing. That is the type of high-risk, high-capacity business that would likely have its risks fall to the surplus lines market. Another completely hypothetical scenario is sometimes celebrities actually insure their body parts. And if you were an extremely famous singer, hypothetically dating a Kansas City chief, and you made your living off of singing, theoretically, you may want to insure your vocal cords, and the surplus lines market would be able to do that against your future income. So that's kind of what we do. What does the bill do? Mostly, I would honestly consider this technical cleanup and technical changes. For the most part, what we're dealing with here is eligibility criteria for those non-admitted insurers, trying to make that consistent with other state laws. In fact, consistent with the model act that the National Association of Insurance Commissioners has put out. So a lot of that is simply cleanup, and I'm happy to get into any of those specifics if you have questions on them. The most substantive piece of the bill relates to the vehicle dealer's insurance requirements for a vehicle dealer in the state to get licensed. So currently, in order for an automobile dealer to obtain a license in Kansas, they must obtain an insurance policy written by a standard or authorized or admitted company. I'm saying, or those terms are synonymous. An admitted company must satisfy that insurance requirement. The market for that business has gotten extremely hard recently, and according to some of our members, including Chris Peterson, who submitted written testimony for the committee, there are only about 2 active admitted markets writing that type of insurance to satisfy that licensure requirement at present. And just because there are 2 writing it doesn't mean they're going to write it for everybody. So if you've had recent claims, they may deny your application for insurance and you're left without. So what this does is if you are declined by one of those admitted insurers, or if you're declined by those admitted insurers writing business in the state, then you may now, under this bill, access that insurance through a non-admitted insurer to satisfy that requirement for licensure. That's the crux of it. I'd be happy to stand for any questions, but again, I wanted to direct you to testimony from our member, Chris Peterson of the Chris Leaf Agency in Shawnee, Kansas. They are also actually a member of KAIA, so there's that overlap. And I also wanted to just thank the Kansas Insurance Department for all their help on this. We collaborated with them on the language and worked with them on the draft. So can't thank them enough for all their help. And with that, I would be happy to stand for any questions.
All right. Committee, questions for John? Ms. Reeds. Okay. Representative Bergquist.
So yes, sir, thank you for your testimony. Would Lloyd's of London be an example of such a insurance company?
Bingo. Lloyd's of London has about roughly 50% of the U.S. surplus lines insurance market. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I always wanted to play on that game, having the answer, so there we go. Thank you.
All right, committee, further questions? Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just out of curiosity, do you see this market growing with as many insurance carriers that are backing out of the market, especially when it comes to fire and hail and that certain exposures?
It very much depends on the risk. So yes, fire is an issue, but it's particularly an issue, obviously, in California and many western states. I haven't seen it affecting the market quite as much. But here's the thing. In California, this is actually a much bigger question. I'd be happy to talk to you offline about it, but here's my short answer. In places like Florida and California right now, where you've got hurricane risk and wildfire risk running rampant, it's the admitted insurers that are leaving the state, not so much the surplus lines insurers. The surplus lines insurers are actually the ones filling in the gaps where those admitted carriers are pulling out.
Right, so that was kind of my question. There was just another huge insurance carrier that backed out of the Midwest just recently because of the hail and wind exposure across the Midwest states. So I would imagine that your market would be growing as you do fill those gaps, and it would be good for there to be some sort of a list somewhere that people could go to when they can't find coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I will say this: that I think that is a cyclical trend. I really do believe that. You know, as risks emerge, what will happen is they will migrate to the surplus lines market. But then as admitted insurers are able to get their regulated rates approved and get a little more experience on some of those things, eventually we see them migrate back into the admitted market. So it's just kind of a cycle back and forth. And right now we're in a very hard market that's driving a lot of business to surplus lines. You know, I can't predict when, but the cycle has been perpetual in my lifetime, and so I do expect it to soften at some point.
Right, Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your testimony. And I always enjoy talking surplus insurance because I didn't know it existed 2 years ago, and it's always fascinating what can be insured. I guess, could you give me an example, though, of what in Kansas, not vocal cords, but what in Kansas is the gap that we see more surplus insurance on?
I'm not sure if, well, so it's a great question. Data on particular lines of business is a little bit sparse on this. It always lags. It comes from the NAIC. It's like 2 years late, and they don't break it down by line of business. So to be honest, I don't know. I wish Chris was here. He could answer that question for you. He's an expert on the local market and the types of things that are coming to him.
And that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, my colleague sets up a pretty good example of what potentially could happen, or if it is happening. I'm just was in your model that you described makes sense. I was just curious if we're seeing something right now.
I'll tell you this: general property risks are increasingly moving toward the surplus lines market. That's all commercial property risks. So it's pretty broad at the end of the day. If you were to see a rush of torts or lawsuits in this state, which fortunately we haven't necessarily seen that, at least I'm not privy to it, then you would see that general liability business moving toward our market. But we haven't really seen that as much. Generally, it's mostly property risks. I wish I could be more specific, and I know Chris could, and I'd be happy to talk to him and get you an answer on that. Sure.
All right, Representative Bergkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you refresh my memory? What's the reason from going from 4.5 million to 15 million in the capital?
It's a great question. So that is in the NAIC model. That's the number within the NAIC model. Kansas is actually the only state that is below 15 million at the moment. And obviously 4.5 is quite a bit below the 15. So, and just to be clear, that is the reserves are what the insurance company must hold against their potential claims. The capital and surplus is beyond that. So it is a big step up, but it's, from our analysis, I think there was maybe one company that briefly entered below that 15 for a short time last year in my discussions with the department, and I think they're back up over it. But that is not a threshold that is unusual for any surplus lines insured operating in the United States.
Right. Committee, further questions? This is our one live proponent. This is your shot. All right, seeing none. John, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much,
I
Mr.
let you off a little bit easy myself.
I appreciate it.
All right. Committee, I'll direct your attention to the written testimony that you also have that John referenced from Chris Peterson. Read that at your convenience or as soon as this meeting ends, whichever comes first. All right, I have no one listed else as a proponent. Would anyone care to speak as a proponent to HB 2087? Seeing none, I'll close proponent testimony and open neutral testimony. Anyone feeling strongly and decisively neutral like to testify this afternoon? Seeing none, morning of the week. It's the morning of the week, being Monday. All right, I'll close neutral testimony. I have no listed opposition as well. Anyone care to speak as an opponent of HB 2087? Seeing none. All right, I will close opponent testimony, close the hearing on HB 2087. Committee, nice work. We are, yes. Oh, you are. I am glad you were here. All right. I promised that I'd loop back, and then I forgot all about it. Are there any further bill introductions? Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad you're here, too. I have an introduction request for 2025 RS 0792, having to do with updating our statutes for captive insurance companies.
Very good. Committee, are there any objections to entering a captive insurance bill? Sounds exciting. All right, seeing none, it is entered. What was the RS number on that again? I'm sorry.
0792.
0792. All right, very good. All right, since we opened that door, let's see, are there any other bill introductions? This is the last shot for committee introductions for the entire session. Otherwise, you'll have to hold your peace until, next year. All right, seeing none, we are done with those. And committee, we will be meeting on Wednesday. I know we'll be working on HB 2087 that we just heard. And stay tuned, we'll probably have some hearings in addition to that, but we just don't have them quite assigned to our committee yet. So keep your eyes peeled, they will be showing up any minute now. I have the utmost of confidence. Until that time, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.